Imagine being so greedy that even your shareholders are like, bruh, no. That's kind of what's been happening with Activision Blizzard and more recently with Electronic Arts. Now, I have already talked about this story with Activision Blizzard involving CTW Investment Group and them saying that Activision Blizzard was being irresponsible and unethical with their corporate behavior and with their excessive executive pay. The director of CTW, Dieter Weisenegger, urged Activision Blizzard shareholders to vote against the management say-on-pay proposal. It says right here that the group noted that the pay proposal doesn't detail some performance targets Kotick must meet, while others are set below the previous year's goals and actual results. Despite that, Kotick's proposed compensation has not been reduced accordingly. So the CEO did not meet performance targets, and he's still asking for the same high level of pay, which is ridiculous. And it's noted right here that Kotick's pay has been consistently larger than the total pay of CEO peers at similar companies. And this all came on top of Activision Blizzard having laid off 800 staff in early 2019 despite having a record year. Executives keep getting millions and millions while ground floor workers and developers suffer. Now, the same investment group, CTW, is going after EA. Headlines behind this started to crop up, like this one right here. The same group that called out Activision's expensive CEO bonuses is now going after EA, roughly around July of 2020. Here's another headline. EA put on blast by investor group over huge payments to top executives. And here is Games Industry, whose headline reads, EA developing an addiction to executive overpay, says investment group. The same investment group and other investment groups are saying enough is enough. These executives are way overpaid, and the fact that they're asking for much more in how much they want to make in terms of yearly salary and bonuses and other forms of financial benefits, it's ridiculous. So here is the letter that CTW sent to shareholders. This right here highlights exactly the issues that CTW has with Electronic Arts. So it reads right here, and this is a letter from July 8th, 2020. Dear Electronic Arts shareholder, we urge you to vote against the say-on-pay proposal at Electronic Arts annual meeting on August 6, 2020. The company has gone too far in terms of executive pay, piling on exorbitant equity awards to two executives, Blake Jorgensen, Chief Financial Officer, and Kenneth Moss, Chief Technology Officer, and paying multi-million-dollar bonuses following worker layoffs. While shareholders have benefited from appreciation in the company's stock price over the long term, we believe that these gains do not permit the company to indiscriminately pay its executives. For investors, the following are of immediate concern. EA has an excessive equity granting problem. It has granted some of its executives a new special award before the performance period of a previous special award has even finished, on top of already high annual equity pay. Amid below-target vesting of annual performance equity, EA granted two overlapping special awards to two executives, seemingly to replace unearned equity compensation, which undermines the spirit of pay for performance. The awards are further unjustified. The claims of retention are dubious, given that there is already one special retention award outstanding, and executives at the company, generally including the two that received the two special awards, are already well compensated through ordinary course equity awards, particularly due to above-median equity grant benchmarking. Executives received above-median bonuses following layoffs of roughly 4% of EA's total workforce in 2019. So basically, these executives are already earning plenty. The justifications they're providing for giving them a further additional pay raise is not enough, and this all comes amidst layoffs, which seems to suggest that these bonuses to the executives is all coming at the expense of ground floor employees. And so CTW concluded that EA is becoming a serial grantor of special rewards. The performance period for a previous special award has yet to conclude. When these layoffs happen, companies tend to tout how they're facing certain challenges and how, oh God, we feel so bad about these layoffs, but we got to do what we got to do. Meanwhile, they're granting their executives a pay raise. They're not even, cutting their pay in order to try to save and salvage jobs. No, they're getting pay raises, but they haven't really done much to deserve any sort of pay raise. And again, they're already earning plenty of money. The amount of money they're making now is already enough for a lifetime. but they want more. So when these companies tell you that games are too expensive to make, or that, they're not making enough money and so they have to monetize egregiously, consider where that money's actually going to. Much of it is pocketed by the top executives of these companies who have no regard for people below them. All they care about is getting richer and richer, no matter what the cost or the expense or the human sacrifice. And then this paragraph highlights all of the special rewards that have been given out to executives over the years. Scrolling further down, CTW fast forwards to November 2019, EA's fiscal year 2020, and they highlight how just 2 fiscal years after the first grant, and the company has granted the same 2 executives yet another special award. And they break down the numbers right here. A brief summary can be found here in this Ars Technica article, which relays how EA's proposed payment plan granted $21.37 million in total compensation for CEO Andrew Wilson in the 2020 fiscal year, up from $18.3 million in 2019. Other executives were set to see much larger bumps, including CFO Blake Jorgensen, $9.41 million in 2019 to $19.5 million in 2020, a $10 million pay raise, basically, and Chief Studios Officer Laura Meal, $6.95 million to $16.1 million, again, an additional $10 million for this executive as well, and CTO Kenneth Moss, $6.95 million to $14.2 million. How ridiculous is that? Going back to the statement, CTW highlights the reasoning that EA provided. It states right here that for both awards, the company cites retention and incentive rationales in its proxy statement. So here's something they said during fiscal year 2018. Looking ahead to the next several years, the board of directors and the compensation committee determined that incentivizing and retaining these key executives was critical to the company's continued strong growth and success. CTW's retort reads as follows: while we acknowledge the need to keep talented executives at a company, we do not believe in doing so at the expense of pay for performance. You can see right here that EA's intention is to roughly double the financial compensation of some of these executives, and they certainly didn't perform double what they pulled previous years. The company's performance hasn't reflected that the pay raise is justified, and again, with all the layoffs that occurred, giving these executives tens of millions in pay raise, in financial benefits, it's simply ridiculous and a horrible look. CTW continues, the notion that executives need to be incentivized with pay above and beyond the ordinary course program is a complete fallacy in almost all cases. In reality, executives are already well incentivized through a company's ordinary course executive pay program alone because they receive significant amounts of annual equity grants in the first place that appreciate in value when the company performs well. So again, these executives already paid well enough, and the pay increases as the company performs better. That's already something that's in place. Additional pay raises above that, especially in the tens of millions, is excessive. Way beyond excessive. That is particularly true at EA, where the company benchmarks equity pay at the 75th percentile of its peer group. The company's ordinary course executive pay program should be more than enough to compensate these executives and incentivize them to succeed. So as an example, CTW points out that recently EA stocks have gone up significantly, and that meant that all vested equity still held by executives has also appreciated considerably before any special performance award equity that has not been earned yet is even taken into account. So they've already seen pay raises given the structure of the company. Now recall that when the major layoffs happened at EA, the executives announced that they would voluntarily be forfeiting their bonuses in show of, solidarity or something, but CTW here questions their intent and how meaningful that forfeiting of bonus actually was. It reads right here, hard on the heels of announced layoffs in the last few days of the company's 2019 fiscal year, EA executives received multi-million-dollar above-target bonuses in fiscal 2020, with CEO Andrew Wilson receiving $4 million. In fiscal 2019, executives voluntarily forfeited their bonuses, which, while commendable, was mostly or entirely due to company's financial performance. It is very telling that the 2019 proxy does not even disclose what executives would have received on a formulaic basis if they had not forfeited their bonuses that year. Shareholders are left to wonder how much, if any, bonus amounts executives would have ultimately earned. Typically, when bonuses are forfeited, companies provide a formulaic breakdown of what the executives would have received to demonstrate that the voluntarily forfeited sum was meaningful. The absence of that disclosure in this case, coupled with EA's financial underperformance for that fiscal year, lead shareholders to conclude that the forfeited amounts were most likely small to begin with, diminishing any altruistic motive surrounding the forfeiture. So basically, in fiscal 2019, EA's performance was less than stellar, so bonuses were probably not a huge amount anyway, so them forfeiting that not-so-big bonus isn't really as meaningful as EA tried to make it out to be. Basically, them voluntarily forfeiting that bonus was them making a small, very small sacrifice in the grand scheme of things in order to look good and, garner some kind of positive attention amidst the layoffs. And so with all this in mind, CTW concludes that, quote, in summary, the special awards granted to 2 EA executives are not justified. And this letter was sent to shareholders to vote against the proposed payment plan. And apparently the letter resonated with many shareholders because Bloomberg reports Electronic Arts investors reject executive pay in rare Rebuke. So here's what the article has to say. Investors in the video game giant, referring to EA, cast almost 171 million votes against the pay plan for named officers and almost 60 million in favor, the company said Friday in a regulatory filing. Yup, of the nearly 231 million shareholder votes, a whopping 171 million of those went against the proposed pay plan, while 60 million went in favor. That's a huge discrepancy. That's a vast majority of shareholders who looked at the pay plan and said, nope. Bloomberg calls this whole development a rare rebuke, noting that just 2.2% of companies in the Russell 3000 have seen their say on pay proposals rejected by investors thus far in 2020. EA's pay raise plan was so absurd that it drew the attention of a number of proxy advisors, including Institutional Shareholder Services, Glass Lewis & Co., and of course CTW Investment Group, all of who opposed the pay plan. EA has already responded to this opposition, stating the following: "We value the opinion of our shareholders, and the board and compensation committee will take their feedback into account as part of our ongoing evaluation of our compensation programs. We work constantly to make Electronic Arts a great place to be and work for our people. And in highly competitive talent markets, we work aggressively to keep the great people we have." As for what CTW had to say after these results, after EA's pay plan was rebuked, here's a statement that was quoted by Ars Technica's article. This statement comes from CTW Executive Director Dieter Weisenegger. He said, "Shareholders issued a resounding rebuke of Electronic Arts' deeply flawed executive pay practices that does not incentivize executives to create long-term value. This vote is a clarion call for the board to stop piling awards on top of awards for top executives and make sure that the company develops a pay philosophy that is focused on talent development and retention throughout all levels of the company." Hell yes. In other words, instead of shoving all that money in the pockets of the top executives, maybe try distributing some of that to the talent below who are important and key to creating these games and to running the company as a whole. Maybe try taking some of that money and saving some jobs for once instead of, prioritizing giving executives who already earn millions double the pay for arbitrary reasons. Stop giving top executives special treatment, especially when the treatment is excessively special, as is the case with the EA pay plan that they proposed. And here's a statement that Weisenegger provided to games industry when talking about them pursuing Activision Blizzard and EA. This was before the deliberation was made to rebuke EA's pay plan, but he had a thing or two to say about Activision Blizzard and EA's payment practices when it comes to executives. So right here he said, "We believe that having good compensation practices is tantamount to the long-term success of a company. With huge huge equity awards and so on, there are incentives to focus on the short term. That's an area that we're focused on and pay a lot of attention to. Activision Blizzard has been on our radar for a while, given that there have been long-standing corporate governance issues that it hasn't been able to address. That's why we decided to set out more forcefully earlier this year. When we looked at EA, the double incentive awards that the company was giving out just didn't make sense to us at all. And then beyond that, we have a statement from Michael Varner, CTW's Director of Executive Compensation. He added, "Somehow we've reached a point in the exec compensation space where ordinary course pay program isn't good enough, despite again it being worth millions and millions already." That's what we saw with both Activision and EA. We're really trying to combat that across industries, across companies. It just so happens that we see this a lot in the game sector. The video games industry continues to stand as one of the most unregulated industries right now. They can get away with a lot that other industries wouldn't be able to. But yeah, they're absolutely right about these companies always thinking short-term, about short-term performance and short-term compensation, instead of, finding ways to put that all the money that they're making to good use for long-term success, keeping the ground floor employees happy, giving them the appropriate bonuses while giving executives an appropriate level of compensation that doesn't stretch to levels of egregiousness as EA did by trying to double the pay of executives who are already making millions. And I'll emphasize again that shareholders rebelling or revolting in this fashion against companies is very rare. In 2020 alone, just 2.2% of companies in the Russell 3000 have rejected, say, on pay proposals by companies. You really have to raise a lot of red flags to incite a rebuke of this level. Even shareholders are pissed off at companies like Electronic Arts and Activision Blizzard for not making good use of money, for pocketing that money and distributing it to the top executives instead of using that money to actually further the company for the long term. Now, I'm not an expert of the business sector. I'm not big on investing or anything, so I'm not sure about the long-term effects this will all ultimately have. But at the very least, right here, right now, those executives who tried to pocket tens of millions more were utterly and thoroughly denied on that front. And you know what? That makes me happy. That brightens my day a little. I feel as though the payment that these executives are receiving even before EA's proposed pay plan is already way too much. They should be cutting that salary already. Like, they don't work that much harder than the ground floor employees. And they're already set for life. They've already made millions and millions across years and years. They're set for life. Why on earth do they need this much more money? The fact of the matter is that they don't. For a lot of these executives, I don't know if it's just like a dick measuring contest or something, but they just like to see those numbers go up. That's what it comes down to. Even at the expense of those who are in a less privileged position. But I'll take wins where I can get them. This is certainly a win, even if it's not necessarily a world-shattering event. It is a rare event, a rare rebuke, and these executives will go home with tens of millions less, and hopefully those tens of millions will actually be used for something more useful than lining the pockets of already rich people of the top 1%. So that's one man's take on this whole situation. Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts and opinions are on EA's payment plan being rejected by investors and shareholders. Drop a comment, and to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.